Understanding China's digital generation. Now this is thoughtful. Hello, I'm Kitty Boo in Shanghai. Advertisers in China are shifting ad dollars into digital media, but navigating China's media industry has long been a difficult task due to the size, scope, and fragmentation of the market. We usually feature business executives on our show, but this week we want to look at the behavior of Chinese netizens with an academic eye. Our guest today is Don Schultz, Professor Emeritus at Northwestern University's Medill School and a regular lecturer at China's Peking University and Tsinghua University. He's currently a visiting professor at the HSBC School of Business at Peking University's campus in Shenzhen. He's also the co-author of a new book, Understanding China's Digital Generation, written with his wife Heidi Schultz and Martin Block. We invited him to our studio today to share insights into the behavior of Chinese netizens. Don, thanks for coming in today. My first question is, why would three people from a university in the middle of America write a book on Chinese consumers?
Well, it's very interesting. We started coming to China in 2001, and we had an arrangement now with a research company who's headquartered in the U.S., but they operate an online research service in China, and they've been doing that since 2006. And we've been doing most of the analysis for them. They capture the data, and we essentially then do the analysis of the data for them. So it's called China Quarterly, and it's an online service that gets about 25 to 30,000 responses every time we do it. So we have roughly over 300,000 responses. So what we've really found is that if you look at the Chinese market longitudinally, that is over time, you can make sense out of it much better than you can if you start to look at it as simply snapshots, this time, next time, something else. So that's why we're here, that's why we're working here. I do a lot of work at Tsinghua University, Beijing University. We're on our way down to Shenzhen at the HSBC School of Business and so on.
So in your book, for example, you claim young Chinese are caught in the rapidly rising prices of housing, food, and healthcare, and also their desire for luxury products. But it seems like this can be said also about European young consumers or Americans. What's different about China?
Well, the difference I think you find is that China is trying to change from an export economy to a consumption economy. So on the one hand, you have the government saying spend, spend, spend. Then you have the culture saying save, save, save. And I think this young group of people really are caught in the middle between listening to what the 12th five-year plan is and what the government is saying versus what their historical and traditional and cultural activities have been. So I think that those two things have a big impact, and much more of an impact than you find in the U.S. or in Western Europe.
It's interesting, you just now mentioned the strong culture of saving in China. So do you see this nation changing from a nation of savers to a nation of consumers?
That's going to be a very interesting issue. A lot of it, from what we have seen in our research, a lot of it has to do with whether or not the government is able to provide safety nets in terms of health care, pensions, those sort of things. That's going to make a great deal of difference of whether or not people will really change from the saving mentality to the spending mentality. If you don't think there's much there for you in the future, if you believe that you're still pretty much on your own, it's going to be difficult for the government to unlock all of those savings that are existing today.
What are the differences between men and women then in this sense?
What we find, and I think it's been said before, but I think it's very accurate, that is, men buy and women shop. And that really makes a difference. Women love to go shopping. Men go for the purpose of buying something, getting it over with, and going away. And I think that plays out, and we see that over and over in terms of what are your leisure pursuits, what do you do in your spare time, and so on. Women are heavily involved in shopping. Men are into watching TV and sports and those kind of things.
So let's go back to the digital topic for a bit. What do you think it's going to be the next killer app or site that's going to capture the attention of the nation?
Well, if I knew that, I wouldn't be here because I'd be investing in it. But I think what you have to think about is these things are a moving target, particularly these new apps and these new applications. They come and go. And I think what we've begun to see already is a downturn in Facebook and the use of Facebook. MySpace just disappeared in a very short period of time. So I think these are very short-term, shiny objects. And what happens is consumers really get involved with them, like them, but then all of a sudden they find something that's more interesting and more innovative, and so they switch. There's no commitment to them. They're not paying anything for them for the most part. So I think what you really are looking at is a moving target and trying to identify. I think the real question is a thing that I have sort of developed, which is the 3 I's. That is, number one, you have to invent. Number two, you have to implement. And number 3, you have to intrude. And once that happens, if you start to see those kind of things happening, if you see the intrusion and people beginning to use it, then you can sort of feel comfortable. It's these flashes that go up and down that come and go very quickly that make it really difficult to predict that.
In your book, you also mentioned that there are no social networks like Facebook in China. What do you think of the Sina Weibo microblogging site then? Do you see that as a social network? And if so, do you see that having the potential of becoming Facebook in China?
Well, I think there's a possibility. I think the thing that we've seen is in China, in the US, we tend to have mass systems. It's Twitter, it's Facebook, it's things like that, where lots and lots of people are involved. In China, it tends to be individualized. So this particular application is for this group of people, this one is for somebody else, this one is for somebody else. So it's almost an individualized social media system in China as opposed to the mass media system we have in the US.
Do you think Sina Weibo is going to be one of the long list of sites that rose very quickly and then also disappeared just as quickly?
I think you're going to see a lot of those in the very near term. That it's fairly easy to get these up and get them started if you can find financing and get some kind of support for it. But then unless they catch on, unless they have some reason, if they have something that's unique or different, that is just the only thing that makes them succeed.
In your book, you also mentioned that in China, online shopping is exploding, even though there are ongoing issues with trust, payment, and also logistics. Now, let's take the trust issue you talked about. Are you talking about a lack of trust in, for example, the products of Chinese-made goods, or the lack of trust in retailers selling counterfeit products?
Both.
Both.
Both. What seems to happen is, until there is some confidence level built in online shopping, it doesn't do very well. Confidence is growing. I think Alipay has had a great deal of impact on helping that grow in China because people feel safe about buying through that system. But there has been historically a great deal of, I thought I bought this and I got something else. And I think the real issue is when you get to the digital generation, they're very intelligent. They have access to lots of things in their hand. They can check things out very quickly. And what happens is they're able to see through what is essentially a system that is fraudulent or something like that. And I think it's going to be more and more difficult for counterfeiters to practice that in the future through the online systems.
What should foreign marketers understand about the trust issue in China in order to succeed then?
Well, the trust issue is huge. Part of the things that come out of the research we've been doing. The Chinese people go to fast food restaurants like KFC, McDonald's, and Pizza Hut. They don't go there necessarily for the food. They go there because it's safe. It's a safe place to go because they believe the Western companies are much more focused on cleanliness, safety of products, and so on. So they tend to trust the brands because of the safety issue, as opposed to trusting the brands and saying, I get a better value, or I get something in addition to. But they go there because all the milk problems and the things that have occurred in the past, that's what creates the difficulty.
Some say that young Chinese are going entirely digital. Is that the case, or are they still using some traditional media?
Well, I think the interesting thing is yes, digital is really taking over. It's becoming very, very, very important. However, the thing that we keep finding in media consumption, that is what young consumers are doing, they're still using traditional media. We still see a tremendous amount of television usage and a really large amount of influence from television. And part of that, I think, comes from the fact that it verifies and justifies decisions that have been made. If you have seen my commercial on television, and then if I come with the product, that gives me face with my associates. So I think to a certain extent, the digital thing is very personal, very close with individual people, but I think they still need mass media, and that's what we tend to see happening.
Is word of mouth a big factor in China, both online and offline?
Word of mouth is a major factor. It's a very large factor. However, it's not the same in China as it is in the U.S. A huge amount of the Chinese activity occurs through instant messaging, and that essentially is a form of word of mouth. We don't measure it that way, and we don't talk about it that way. But if you look at instant messaging, in essence, people see a commercial and say, I want to send this to my friend, or did you see this, or have you heard that, which is essentially word of mouth. Word of mouth is extremely powerful, and but the Chinese don't even think about it as word of mouth. They simply think about it as sharing with their clan, with their group, with their friends, and with their neighbors.
In your book, you claim that there are no dominant social networks such as Facebook in China. Do you see the Chinese microblogging site Sina Weibo taking off? And do you see that as a social network site? And if so, do you think it has the potential to become the Chinese Facebook?
Well, I think there's a potential for that. But I think the interesting thing about the Chinese is the Chinese are very, very focused on their group. And that means that it's nice to have mass media, but in essence, what you're talking about are relatively small numbers and small groups of people who share common interests. We track about 15 to 17 social media through the system that we're analyzing. And in the U.S., once you get past Facebook and Twitter, there's not much left. In YouTube, there's not much left. But in China, all of them have a fairly substantial amount of input and a fairly large amount of participation.
Don, thanks for being on Thoughtful China. That wraps it up for today. Be sure to subscribe to us on Tudou and YouTube. You can also follow us on Weibo and Twitter and join our LinkedIn group. We'll see you again.